The whole team was very unsettled. And this is the chance now for the rest of the team to re-galvanise and put their support behind Laurent.
He's a very different personality to Christian Horner, so I'm going to be fascinated to see how the team reacts to him.
It will be a bit more of a pragmatic race team maybe, and not necessarily all guns blazing attack.
How do you think Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri will fare, JP?
It's not been one of Lando's better tracks. Oscar will be thinking, this is my chance to bounce back for the last couple of weekends. I think the fact that it's a sprint weekend again brings that jeopardy really quickly into the weekend.
Is this the silver bullet for Ferrari? They've got this new rear suspension. Are we now going to see them challenging regularly at the front?
It would be fascinating to see. It could be. I just see it as a Verstappen wins and it's going to be Red Bull redemption.
Two teammates at the top of the standings, two new team principals, and two chances to score points. The second half of the season starts with an F1 sprint weekend at Spa, and there's lots to talk about before we head to Belgium. This is F1 Nation, I'm Tom Clarkson, and with me is former Renault driver turned F1 TV commentator, Jolyon Palmer. Jolyon, great to have you on the show again. How are things? Are you enjoying this little mini break we're having?
Yeah, I have to say I am. My 5-week-old baby has had a little bit of me time, so I think he's enjoyed it a little bit more as well. But it's strange, isn't it? Because we've now got back-to-back races and then the summer break. So I have to say I didn't quite pencil in this mini break. It feels like it's been an absolute chasm of F1 at the moment. Nothing for a couple of weeks and so much to talk about.
Well, so much to talk about. And let's get straight into it, JP. It's the dawning of a new era for Red Bull Racing this weekend as new team principal and CEO Laurent Mekies takes his seat on the pit wall for the first time since replacing Christian Horner after Silverstone. The spotlight's going to be on him, on the team, on Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda after a very challenging first half of the season. JP, what will Laurent be hoping to achieve in this first weekend in charge?
I imagine he's obviously going to be set for the lion's den of the media scrum in Belgium, and it's going to be a really intense first weekend for him. You know, going into a championship-winning team, now he's at the helm from his experience of racing bulls, which is so different in terms of how the team operates and what they expect. But, I still think Red Bull have the ingredients for a really strong weekend. I still think they've got a great race team that they know how to execute races. They've got a driver that can massively perform even when his back's against the wall in Max Verstappen. And he's always good at Spa as well. And the team are good at Spa. So I think if you're Laurent heading into his first weekend, I think you're going to absorb life at the top-line F1 team. It's going to be very different for him, just personally, with the media pressures and the scrutinies, the questions. But then get the cars on track. It's a sprint weekend, so there'll be talking points on track immediately. And you're just hoping that Red Bull can find the ground running and Max can do a good job.
He's a very different personality to Christian Horner, so I'm going to be fascinated to see how the team reacts to him. I think he's more gentle than Christian Horner. You know, Horner's only line of defence was always attack, wasn't it? Whereas I think he's a little bit more guarded. Laurent's a little bit more guarded. I mean, how do teams react to a change at the top? Do you think he'll have the backing of the team? Do you think Max will be motivated to deliver a top performance for Laurent?
You know what? I think they will all be really gearing up behind him at the moment, because this is after the fallout of everything in the last year and a half and the key personnel that have left Red Bull. And there's a lot of people within the team that are looking around and thinking, who's going to go next? You know, the whole team was very unsettled. And this is the chance now for the rest of the team, who are still very good at what they do, to re-galvanise, put their support behind Laurent. And as I said, I don't think, 1 week to the next week, the team principal role is going to change a huge amount. They are not hands-on on the pit wall. They're not driving the car. They're not implementing strategies. So really, it's up to the race team to still put together the best weekend they can. And it's all about just then the communication channels with Laurent, making sure that he's fed back and he's in the loop as quickly as possible. He understands where the team are at, what needs to change. And I wonder with the different personalities between Christian and Laurent if there's going to be a bit of a culture change at Red Bull because of exactly what you said, actually, the attacking nature of Christian Horner. You know, he was always bullish, always wanting to hit back if he was ever on the back foot. Do you remember all those bits of paper that we saw whenever there was a steward's decision that went against him or Verstappen? So I wonder if that will change and it will be a bit more of a pragmatic race team maybe, and not necessarily all guns blazing attack in favour of Max. But we will see, because we really don't know what Laurent Mekies is going to be like in this situation.
Well, and Laurent is an engineer by trade. He studied at the same engineering university in Paris as Fred Vasseur, the boss of Ferrari. Do you think that'll help somehow? I mean, might it? Everyone's talking about the second Red Bull, right? We've had Liam Lawson have a couple of races. Yuki Tsunoda's fared no better since he's been in the car, since Suzuka. Do you think Laurent, because he's worked with Yuki, can have an immediate impact on that side of the garage?
I think that's probably the best use of him in the immediacy, is to work out where, because if you've got two cars that are the same, you have to understand why one driver is so good and the other one isn't. And even Red Bull as a team are scratching their heads thinking, how can no one get near Max? So when you've got now a team principal that, you know, hasn't worked with Max in this capacity, as Christian had sort of developed Max into the champion that he is, always coming through with Red Bull, and they won their titles together. Laurent has actually come from working with Yuki Tsunoda and with Liam Lawson in the past, and that was his first foray into being a team principal. So he's kind of the underdog mentality. So I think he's going to be definitely arm round Yuki and thinking, come on, you were great when you drove with me. You were qualifying up in the front three rows. What is going on here? And trying to understand the second driver role a bit more, which I think will be helpful. Whether or not he'll be able to actually find the performance there is obviously the bigger head scratcher for the team.
Tell us a little bit about Spa, Jolyon, because I mean, I'm looking back at last year and Perez qualified third, right? So he was suffering the same fate as Yuki Tsunoda is suffering now, and couldn't hold a flame to Max Verstappen. Yet at Spa, that car was working for both drivers last year. Do you think Yuki can take some confidence from that?
But also at Spa, do you remember last year it was the wet qualifying and Max was clear of the field and then had his grid penalty that dropped him down. And then when it dried up, Checo then slipped back through the field. So Spa is about a perfect track for Max as you get, I think. The classic nature of it, the fast corners, the sweeping, flowing nature. Still, I would expect Red Bull to be good. And I think Max can be right in contention for a victory in Spa. Would Yuki take confidence from that? I just don't know how he would find confidence from anything at the moment because of how performance is going. So it's just a reset. And maybe if you're Yuki, the confidence is having a boss that you know and like, who is just going to be a lot more in your camp than I would say Christian was and the old guard of Red Bull. So having someone that's there to understand what's going on with that second car. And then, hopefully the car performance is good, because we've seen if Max is on the front row, then the second driver can be in the top 10. If Max is sixth, the second driver is struggling to get out of Q1. So it's all relative there.
Where are you finding time at Spa? I mean, Sector 1 is easy, flat, doesn't matter who you are, right? And then Sector 2 is those fast flowing corners. I'm thinking of Pouhon, the double left-hander. Is that where you dial your car in for?
So Spa is the classic downforce trade-off, which we're getting more and more of actually now. But even at Silverstone, Red Bull had their great downforce trade-off that gave Max the pole but the difficult Sunday. So they can run the car in that low downforce configuration, which they'll probably do again, which will make them really quick in the first and the third sector. And then you're trying your best to keep it glued through Pouhon and the middle sector. The middle sector is the tricky bit in terms of the corners, because the first sector is La Source, a tight right-hand hairpin. It's kind of fine. Blast flat out, whatever the downforce level, through a Rouge, and then you're at the top of the hill. So it's simply what wing do you have on the car. The last sector is kind of the same, the bus stop. The middle sector is where all the driving skills are going to come out. And especially if you are trimming out the downforce, which everyone will do to an extent, but Red Bull maybe a little bit more, then that's where the driver magic's got to come in and where you've got to find it. I always think Les Combes coming through those three-part corners, down the hill. Is it Malmedy?
Rivage.
Rivage. There's too many great corner names. Where's Malmedy? The one before it.
The right-hander after Les Combes. Yeah,
it's the little right at the end of Les Combes, isn't it? I think round that section is where you can lose a load of time because it's sort of lower speed, a bit more fiddly, and actually you've got Pouhon, which is a brilliant corner. It's like the breathtaking corner now with Spa, but all of these fast corners like Copse and Maggots at Silverstone, there's actually not so much lap time that you can win there. It's just kudos for being fast and trying to do it flat out.
Well, can you imagine if Max Verstappen won the Belgian Grand Prix, Mekies' first race in charge? I mean, you couldn't make it up, but you definitely are giving me the impression that it is possible.
I think it could be, but also remember Max won his first Grand Prix at Red Bull, so it would be the full lineage coming back in for Laurent now getting his first win. And I don't think it's necessarily would be like an indictment of where the team are at. I don't think they'd suddenly be fixed. But I do think they have a good race team, and I think they will have a good car at Spa. And I think with Max driving it, I'm not saying that they'll be favourites, but I would be surprised if they're out of contention. And they've got a decent shot. The one thing that might throw a spanner in the works is the fact it's a sprint weekend, and Red Bull often would take a little bit more time to get the car into a good window.
Well, at the top of this show, I mentioned that there are 2 new team principals at the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. The other being the new TP at Racing Bulls, Alain Permain. He stepped up from being racing director. You worked with him, actually, for a couple of years, JP. I mean, how different is Alain's challenge compared to the one facing Mekies?
Oh, I think it's completely different. Racing Bulls is much more of a race team. And this is what Alain Permain is. He is brilliant at being so straightforward as an operator. He knows the inner workings of the engineering team. So when I was at Renault, he was the sporting director, and he basically just ruled all of the sporting side of Renault and Lotus before that. So I think he'll be pretty good at Racing Bulls because they're really, it's the race team, how to execute the most on the race weekend. And I don't think the team principal role will be anywhere near as dynamic there as it is at Red Bull. It's still the B team. You've got Peter Bayer there still as the CEO. So I think Alain Permain, the title is there now as team principal. He's worked a lot of years to get to this point, and it's great for him. I would still be surprised if he's not really hands-on in terms of the race team, getting everything right. And he's got so much experience that he will be the sort of guy that oversees a little bit of the strategy, wants to dive in on all of these technical points.
This episode is sponsored by Trade Coffee, the #1 coffee destination in the US for both hot and cold coffee drinkers. It probably won't surprise you that being from the UK, I'd never really tried cold brew until recently. It's just not as common over here, and I always thought it was one of those overly complicated coffee shop treats for those that were really into it. But when I was placing my next trade order and realised they had a dedicated cold brew collection, I thought, why not give it a shot? And I totally get it now. I picked out a bag from Cerberus. They're one of the 15 cold brew roasters Trade works with. It was described as having notes of cherry, chocolate and toffee, which sounded perfect for summer. They grind it specifically for cold brew, so all I had to do was scoop some into a jug of water, stick it in the fridge overnight, and by morning it was ready for me to just grab and go. It was delicious. I'm converted. Trade makes it super easy to get quality coffee at home. They partner with top US roasters and hand-pick beans just for cold brew, so you get the smooth, rich flavour without the fuss. And they don't just stop at beans, they also provide expertly curated equipment that's easy to use so you can make amazing coffee at home that tastes better and costs less than cafe takeout or concentrates. And the best part, you can pause deliveries when you're travelling and restart it when you're at home, so it's ideal for a packed summer calendar. For a limited time, Trade is offering 50% off a month of cold brew. That's around 60 cups of cold brew for 50% off when you go to drinktrade.com/nation. That's drinktrade.com/nation to get 50% off 1 month of cold brew. drinktrade.com/nation. Let's now turn our attention to the top of the championship. Oscar Piastri leads his McLaren teammate Lando Norris by 8 points. And with a maximum of 33 available across the F1 Sprint and the Grand Prix, it's a huge opportunity for both drivers to make a statement. We've talked about Spa, the racetrack. How do you think Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri will fare, JP? Do you think the track layout favours one ahead of the other?
I would say Oscar's always been really good at Spa. I think there's various tracks, and you're trying to pinpoint. We've done this for a few weeks now, and I think I've got a 100% record of getting it wrong. So this probably means not very much. But on track record, Oscar has got good pace around this place. He had his sprint pole, didn't he, in his first season? He had the podium last year. He was closing in on those duo, the two Mercedes at the front, and it's not been one of Lando's better tracks. But again, with those two, it's really tough to go. I think on paper, Oscar will be thinking, this is my chance to bounce back for the last couple of weekends. But Lando's got the momentum from the last couple of weekends. And I think the fact that it's a sprint weekend again brings that jeopardy really quickly into the weekend, because you get the momentum on a Friday. And even if it's just a couple of points swing, then that's going to be so big when it's an 8-point difference.
There's one thing about Oscar that I've noticed this year is that he builds over the course of the weekend, and you don't get time to build during a sprint, do you? Because you're straight into qualifying after one practice session. I wonder whether that might play against him in the battle with Lando.
Yeah, possibly, but he's also been really good in the sprints. Remember in China this year, and he was straight on it, and it was Lando that was having the lockups at the hairpin, and I'm looking at the bus stop in Spa as exactly that sort of corner where you've done 95% of the lap and you've got one big stop to get it right. And Oscar delivered, it was the hairpin of his life in China to get that right. So I agree generally. If you look at on paper the weekends that they go through, you will often see Lando ahead through practice, and then by Q2 they're very close, and Q3 it's anyone's game. But is that because Oscar's just being methodical? Is he being calm and then he's just building up to it? And I guess the question is, can he build up to it straight away if he has to build up to it straight away? And I'd be surprised if the answer is not yes.
And do you think that 10-second penalty at Silverstone has been bubbling away under his skin for the last 2 weeks? And do
you think anything bubbles away under Oscar's skin, TC?
I think you're probably right.
But it's tough to imagine it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought the Silverstone one was I've said it before, I think it's a harsh penalty that he obviously didn't take well, because it's a Grand Prix win that's gone. But maybe he's enjoyed the 2 weeks off and can come back, and you can't let that bubble away for 2 weeks. You'd be really struggling with life, wouldn't you? For 2 weeks of the peak of summer, off racing, and you're still just being bogged down by that. So he's got to be fully thinking about this and putting it right.
JP, tell us more about that double left Pouhon, because the team are very open in telling you that Oscar is very good through fast corners. Yet, when you were giving your description of the lap of Spa earlier, Eau Rouge is no longer a corner. You were talking about Pouhon, and then, of course, Blanchiment, that left back towards the bus stop at the end of the lap, is easy flat as well. So if Oscar's big strength is fast corners, are there actually enough at Spa for him to make the difference?
Well, this is the thing with where we're at in Formula One at the moment, because you could say the same thing at Silverstone. You think, the great strength is fast corners. Brilliant. Let's go to Silverstone, where you've got Copse, you've got Abbey, and they're all just flat out, even on low downforce. So we are, with the generation of cars that we've got, the fast corners are becoming flat out or fewer. But the corner that I really like, I'm always a fan of a niche corner, but the Fagnes chicane, some people call it the Piff Path. What a chicane that is. So you're blasting through Pouhon, down the hill, load of orange-clad fans right in front of you, occasionally a flare, and you're blasting through with sometimes a lift, sometimes you might be able to do it pinned as well. It's so quick, Pouhon. But it's still, it's not like Blanchimont's flat out in the wet. Eau Rouge can be flat out in the drizzle. It's a proper corner. But then very quickly, so you take that first apex, the second part is flat, but you're immediately bringing it back to the left-hand side for the Fagnes chicane, which you can barrel in so much speed there. You bring it back to the right for the left-hand side, And yeah, I quite like that as well. It's a nice flowing part of the circuit. And then you're into the next corner's not quite so fun, Stavelot.
Pierre Gasly organises a run around the track every Thursday evening in recent years in memory of Antoine Hubert.
Have you done it?
I have done it, and I'm going to be doing it again next Thursday. And do you know what? When I get to the Fagnes chicane, I'm always slightly taken aback at the height of the curbs there. It feels quite old school. The curbs are quite high. Do you have to respect them in one of these cars?
Yeah.
Can you use them?
You can. I mean, drivers get greedier and greedier on the entry curbs. So on the way in, you find someone leaning on it. But occasionally, I've seen someone drop a wheel on the grass there and find their way towards the barriers. I think it was Valtteri Bottas and a Mercedes a few years ago. So then through the actual apexes, you've got to be very, very polite because it's high speed. You don't want to unload the car with those curbs. And then you've got that bit of gravel on the exit as well, which it's a nice little thread through there. I imagine it's a very pleasant run once you get to the top of the Kemmel Straight. That is,
mate. It's downhill at that point. Are you going this week?
Yeah. So I've got no excuse now for a lap on Thursday,
mate. I'll see you on Thursday evening.
I'm way too unfit these days, TC.
Look, when you were talking about your sort of favourite bits of the track and you came up with the Piff Path, I thought you might say Stavelot because that's the next corner, which is so important, isn't it? Because it spits you out onto that long run back to the bus stop chicane. But how challenging is that?
It's another tricky corner because you're approaching it with loads of G coming through this second part of Fagnes Piff Path. You're a Piff Path guy, obviously. And so you've got to bring the car back very quickly. And then it's a really short stab of the brakes, very short radius corner. So as you're chucking it in, it's not like pretty much the rest of the corners at Spa are very long, loaded corners. And then, as you say, the exit's critical. The second part is now flat out. When it rains, that's tricky. And then you're just glued to the road all the way up to the bus stop. But getting that traction is pretty important. You can lose so much time by making a mistake on the entry or the mid corner there, and then you have to wait to get on the throttle, and you lose all the way to the bus stop.
Right. Given everything we've just said about the track, do you think McLaren are still favourites this weekend?
Yeah, I reckon. It's just a combination of corners that when you have a lot of high speed, some low speed, is difficult for other teams to find their best operating window. So you have to say McLaren are going to be the favourites almost for any given weekend at the moment. But I think Max will be there. And the team I'm really interested to see is Ferrari this weekend, TC. Upgrades are due, and they went really well at Silverstone. I think they really under-delivered at Silverstone.
Well, they were looking good in Q2 at Silverstone. I mean, they've got this new rear suspension. It's all about getting the car to perform at a lower ride height. JP, is this the silver bullet for Ferrari? Are we now going to see them challenging regularly at the front?
It would be fascinating to see. It could be. We have seen so far with Ferrari, if they can run the ride height low, they can be competitive. The problem is doing that legally. And that was the Lewis Hamilton disqualification in China. You know what? It's a sprint weekend. It's Spa. So trying to find that ride height on a sprint weekend is going to be tricky as well for them. And they're obviously going to be playing with it to get it as low as possible and gain the most lap time. But when you've got Eau Rouge and the compression there, everyone's really, really on the limit of ride height, and you don't know about it necessarily until you do the 40 laps of the Grand Prix. So in many ways, tough one to bring this upgrade and try and get that car lower and working better. But I think in terms of performance, this could be a big break for them. They bought their upgrade package to Austria, which worked really well in giving them downforce and a better platform in the high speed of Silverstone, but also through that first sector. And then the idea of this is to try and find that low speed performance and get that ride height down. The lower you run it, the quicker you go. I've got high hopes for them here.
In terms of teams that haven't quite met expectations this year, is Ferrari top of your list? The team have actually confessed and said, we have under-delivered at various points. It's hard to disagree with that, but how much have they underperformed?
I think massively, haven't they? You can't say anything other than it's been disappointing for them. But I was looking through the standings, teams and drivers, and I thought, actually, we're halfway through. If they can find performance now, they can salvage a pretty decent year in this. They could still easily be second in the constructor standings. and they can motor clear of Red Bull and Mercedes. But even if you look at Charles, potentially even Lewis, with the way that the driver standings has been, and you've got George and Max missing loads of points recently, it's not even out of the question that with a car that can give them confidence and consistency, those guys could come back in towards a third place battle.
But that's the point. It's a third place battle, isn't it?
Hey, it's not great. I'm clutching at straws for them, but when you look at it at the end of the year, they might be like, actually, for what on paper is a disastrous year, to be best of everyone apart from McLaren, we'd take it.
Well, Ferrari, as you say, are P2 in the constructors' standings, just 12 points ahead of Mercedes. Let's have a quick chat about the Silver Arrows. That car, the W16, has proved it's capable of winning from pole, as it did in Canada, yet it's also very capable of being off the boil, which we've seen on several occasions this year. What can we expect at Spa? I mean, they crossed the line first and second last year until Russell was disqualified. Do you think they'll go better here? Will this be one of their better weekends?
Have you checked the forecast for the weekend?
We might get wet on our run on Thursday.
Oh, no.
Our run, JP, I say.
Yeah.
I think it's sunshine and showers. It's typical Spa weather, I think.
And it doesn't look that hot, which is good news for Mercedes. Even over one lap, it seems like just having a cooler temperature gives them a chance to get the car working. And it's a really long lap as well. I remember driving Spa in my first time in an FP1 in 2015. And we put on the soft tyres, and I destroyed them by the time I got to the bus stop. I had absolutely nothing left. I'd given it full beans through all the mid-sector. I was probably hanging on to it, oversteering around, loving life through the classic circuit. Got to the end of the lap, and I had absolutely nothing. So when it is hot in Spa, it is really difficult to hang on to those tyres. So if it is a bit drizzly, a bit rainy, that would be the best thing for Mercedes. And it's what will bring them closer to the mix. And then any race weekend, really, they're close enough to be in striking distance. It'll be interesting to see if Kimi Antonelli can get a little bit closer again this weekend and find more of a rhythm, because it still feels like it's just George that's going to be challenging. And I loved that race that he put in last year. To overrule your team, nail the strategy, defensive rear guard for the final few laps. I was a bit gutted that he lost that, because I love to see a driver calling a strategy win. So I think he'll be out for blood, and hopefully Mercedes have a chance with the conditions to get there.
You mentioned Antonelli. I thought it was interesting. He said after Silverstone that, and I'm quoting him now, he should have done a better job in the first half of the season. I hope he's not putting too much pressure on himself.
Yeah, I think you've got to always look at the rookies around. And when Oscar came into Formula One, he was, for his first year, qualified just over 2/10 down on Lando. And I remember being a little bit surprised, maybe, at how Oscar was struggling to get onto terms with Lando, bearing in mind this was the absolute prodigy that McLaren had snatched away from Alpine and all of that furore around the contracts. And then he turned up at McLaren and actually was playing second fiddle to Lando for 2 years. Even last year, it was 24 to Lando. And then he becomes a championship contender. So I think probably for an 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli, you've got to remember you're up against George Russell. You're up against a guy that could be a champion in the right car, who's just come off the back of beating Lewis Hamilton. So it's not going to be an easy benchmark. And I think he's just over 0.3 away on quali pace at the moment. So he's a bit further away from Oscar, but he was rushed through so quickly, wasn't he? Through Formula 2. So he's not even, you can't even compare apples with apples of Antonelli v Piastri. They're both rookies, but in such a different way.
Well, and I think that's the point. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, Kimi, because you got time. Give yourself time.
But who do you think's putting pressure on him? Only himself, I think. Mercedes are not. They can't be putting pressure on, even though all the background chatter and the Max Verstappen.
Well, that's
talks.
it. Is it that? Is it what's happening with my teammate? Am I going to be out? If Max Verstappen comes to Mercedes, am I going to be the one who leaves? It must be an insecure time for him, but just be patient, Kimi.
Yeah, George said it, didn't he, in the press conference with you at Silverstone? Well, my seat should be fine because I'm performing well, so I can't say about the other guy. Yeah. And it was the first time that he's really mentioned, maybe, I am 11-1 now up in qualifying. Why we were talking about me losing my seat? I don't know if it was a slight jab across at the other side of the garage, and maybe that's where Kimi is feeling the pressure from. But I feel like this was inevitable. I think we all maybe hoped for a little bit more from this outstanding talent, but he's not been poor, and he's shown the glimpses of real talent. I think that's the main thing.
This episode of F1 Nation is sponsored by Caldera Lab. If you're anything like me, you probably didn't grow up thinking much about skincare, and when the time comes to use it, it's hard to know where to start. That's why I'm delighted to be partnering with Caldera Lab. They've redefined men's skincare by combining advanced science with high-quality non-toxic ingredients to create a simple, effective routine that actually works. I've been using their products for a while now, and what I like most is how quick it is to use and how fresh my skin looks afterwards with such little effort. You just need to know when to use them. After cleansing, just kick off your mornings with the base layer, a moisturiser that gives a smooth, matte finish. There's zero shine, just healthy looking skin in an instant. It's like magic and my favourite part of the routine. At night, you need something light and fast absorbing, and that's where their award-winning serum, The Good, gets to work, giving your skin a boost while you sleep without the grease. They've also got the Eye Serum, which helps reduce puffiness and dark circles. A little of that every day goes a long way, especially when I'm in the middle of a triple header on the calendar, as I'm sure you can imagine. And it's not just me that loves Caldera Lab products. In a recent study, 100% of men said their skin looked healthier, and over 93% felt they looked more youthful after using their products regularly. Whether you're starting fresh or upgrading your routine, Caldera Lab makes skincare simple and effective. Don't settle for drugstore junk or steal your partner's products. Elevate your routine with skincare made for you. Head to calderalab.com/nation and use the code NATION at checkout to get 20% off your first order. This episode is sponsored by Indeed. You know that feeling when you realise you needed to hire someone yesterday? The pressure's on and you need to move fast. That's where Indeed can help. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, just use Indeed's sponsored jobs to stand out and hire fast. Your post will move right to the top for the most relevant candidates, so you connect with the best people for the job from the start. In fact, Indeed data shows that sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed receive 45% more applications than non-sponsored ones. And what I love about Indeed is exactly what I love about our sport. It's streamlined, efficient, and built to deliver under pressure. No lengthy subscriptions, no locked-in contracts. You only pay for results. And when I say it's fast, I mean it. In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/nation. Just go to Indeed.com/nation right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/nation. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. There's more to come from our Belgian preview shortly, but I just wanted to let you know about the other official F1 podcast that you can listen to. My guest on F1 Beyond the Grid this week is Williams driver Alex Albon. He's a man whose reputation has been transformed this year, and that chat is available from Wednesday. And the latest episode of F1 Explains is an Ask an F1 Driver special with Esteban Ocon. That's out now. Just search for F1 Beyond the Grid and F1 Explains on your podcast app. What about Sauber? They're on a high at the moment, having had their best first half of a season since 2012. They're up to P6 in the Constructors' Championship, now just 18 points adrift of Williams in P5. What chance, JP, your former teammate Nico Hülkenberg getting a second consecutive podium at Spa? Come on, anything's possible.
He's going to back-to-back it, you reckon? This is going to be... I should have called it, shouldn't I? Before Silverstone, I knew it was going to happen. This was Hülkenberg's day. The Sauber's coming alive. Should I give you long odds for that, TC? It's
he always goes well at Spa, actually.
I know, but he's got another 239 races to go before he's due another podium. That's the problem.
But his two P4s came at Spa in, I think, 2012, 2016. But it requires more than just a driver going well at a track, doesn't it?
You know what? When I was teammates with him, Spa was the only track really where I was actually outpacing him in the year. And then my car broke down in qualifying.
Yeah, but in Q2 you were quicker than him.
Yeah, and Q1 and practice. But then I went out for Q3, didn't I? And the gearbox packed in.
Yeah. JP, you're being a bit quick here.
I know. 5-place grid penalty, gearbox change, all of it gone.
Do you think Williams are worried about Sauber now? I mean, Hulk scored, 31 points in the last 4 races, more than Max Verstappen.
I mean, they've got to be concerned. They're right to be concerned because their own performance is dropping off considerably, and the reliability of Williams is now a question mark as well. They went so big at the start of the year, didn't they? Obviously signed Carlos Sainz and got loads of points. Were fighting Ferrari in those early races in Miami and Imola, and it looked like they were going to be home and dry for 5th place. But they are looking over their shoulders a lot. I still think they've got enough to beat Sauber. Let's be honest. As much as it was a great story, the Hülkenberg Silverstone podium was a flash in the pan. But no one's covering off Sauber at the moment in that midfield because they're Sauber. And they've been struggling at the back for many years now. And as soon as they start to be a threat to Williams, you'll see Albon and Sainz start to cover them off. And now the Williams pitwall will look at Sauber more than they have done before because they're thinking these now are our rivals. Maybe it's not Racing Bulls or Aston Martin. Maybe it is actually Sauber that we need to cover off. And if we can out-qualify them, we can outrace them so long as we know who our threats are.
I think you underestimate Sauber at your peril now. I feel it's one of the great stories of 2025, the transformation that has taken place at that team. Interesting too that Williams are bringing upgrades to this race. I mean, under the heading any other business, who else should we be looking out for at Spa, do you think? Could we see another giant killing performance from Pierre Gasly like we saw from him at Silverstone? Or can we see Haas, do you think, come on strong? I'm looking at Ocon in particular seems to be racing very well at the minute.
Gasly was so chuffed with his Silverstone performance that it didn't give me a lot of confidence he thought he could do it again. But it was a really great drive. I mean, Alpine, they're struggling, but it shows how close the whole field is. That even when you think, we went through Friday and Saturday of Silverstone thinking, Alpine, they are now off the back. And then Pierre does a great drive on Sunday to get good points. Honestly, anyone in the field is capable of getting points now, which is the fun. I think a circuit like Spa, I'm thinking Aston Martin are going to show a little bit better.
Why?
Because they've bought these upgrades in recent races. They've had a chance now to dial in, to work out what's going on with them. And it's a sprint weekend where I think you've got Fernando in the car. He can be on it immediately on a circuit that I still think it's a great driver's circuit, and I'll be surprised if Fernando's not the one that's picking his way through to get some points there.
Let's talk tyres, and how much of a factor do you think Pirelli skipping a compound is going to play? So they're bringing the C1, the C3 and the C4. There is no C2. They thought about skipping a compound at Silverstone, but then they decided that wouldn't mix up the strategies much. But at Spa, they think by doing a C1, C3, C4, we will see lots of different strategies. It's the first time they've done it since the Russian Grand Prix back in 2018. Just give us your thoughts on it.
So they want to get towards a 2-stop, don't they? They want the race to be more dynamic in terms of strategies. And last year, for me, it was the holy grail of really tight between a 1-stop and the 2-stop. And I love to see it. But by having that step softer compound, the C3 and the C4 is going to be a tough tyre to use in the race around a circuit like Spa, the amount of energy you put through. So I think you're probably looking at a C1 being your banker, the tyre that will do the bulk of the race, the hardest of the range. But can the C3 do nearly half the race? Probably not around Spa. So you're looking like a two-stop race, which is the logic. And I'm in for qualifying. Again, I mentioned that my old forays around Spa and getting through the tyres in one lap. But having a C4 tyre is a soft tyre for Spa. So it is going to be still something for the teams to work out. We've had a few times this year where the C6 has been in action, and I think the C5 has been quicker around one lap. So I don't think we're going to probably be in that territory for Spa, but it will certainly be a head-scratcher for everyone to try and make sure that tyre, if it does get hotter than expected, that it lasts the lap, and getting the most out of it towards the end of a lap can even be big.
And if there's one car you want to be driving if tyre deg and wear are issues, is it MCL 39?
It is. It sure is. That's where McLaren will be very excited. The fact that if you've got deg coming up, particularly rear degradation that you can get from some of the big stops, and a corner like Pouin is putting so much energy through the tyres. So this is where McLaren will be thinking, even if everyone's close in qualifying day, race day you can overtake at Spa. There's obvious chances to overtake. And then you've got potentially more tyre deg coming in, a little bit of front, a little bit more rear as well. And that's where McLaren will be strong. So have I gone full circle at the end of this? Am I going back towards McLaren definitely being favourites for this one?
Well, I think you've segued beautifully into our podium predictions for the weekend. JP, let's both give our sprint winner and then 1, 2, 3 in the Grand Prix on Sunday. You go first.
Okay. I'm going to go... Sprint winner is going to be Oscar. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. We're going to have... I just see it as a Verstappen wins, and it's going to be Red Bull redemption. That's just the headline coming out of the weekend.
What a story that will be, both for the team and for Formula One.
It would be huge, and it's not out of the question. So I'm going to go Verstappen wins. Let's go Ferrari get there with their upgrades, second place, and we'll go Norris third, just because I said McLaren are going to be favourites, and now I've completely changed my mind.
Well, I'm going for Verstappen to win the sprint. I think he's going to knock the downforce out of that thing. He's going to do what he did at Silverstone, put it on pole, and then he can hang on for a sprint out front. But I think we're going to see the Grand Prix ending slightly differently. I think McLaren are going to come through, and I'm going for a Piastri Norris 1-2 with Lewis Hamilton P3. I've got confidence in that rear suspension of the Ferrari.
I like it. We will see.
Well, JP, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to chat as ever, and I'm going to hold you to that run on Thursday.
Oh, no. What have I signed up for, TC? I will see you then.
And you can follow everything from Belgium on the all-new F1 app and F1.com. And in selected countries, you can watch all the action on F1 TV. Here at F1 Nation, we will round up the weekend on Monday. But for now, thank you very much for listening. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.